Hello and welcome to this ReactorCraft tutorial. First of all, I'd like to thank the mod creator Reika and specify that this mod requires RotaryCraft. So if you don't have RotaryCraft installed, you won't be able to make this work. Okay, now let's introduce the basic concepts. What I'm going to show you in this video is how to create your first reactor. The basic concept of the reactor is to send neutron beams from one point to the other, and if the second point is another reactor, it will generate heat and send other neutrons. Now, let's see how to refine uranium first. Here's the resources you'll need. There are a few colors of fluorite, you only need one of them, and pitchblende. Pitchblende is your source of uranium. You can also use other mods uranium, but pitchblende is what ReactorCraft implements. Now, the machineries you'll need are the uranium processor, made with 2 liquid pipes, 3 obsidian tanks and a mixer, the isotopy centrifuge, I hope I said that correctly. You'll need 2 HSLA steel ingots, 5 base panels and 16 per gear unit. A fuel core made by 2 fuel canister and hopper, 4 HSLA and 1 base panel, 2 base panels. A boiler made by a reservoir, 4 base panels, 4 steel ingots, steam line that's basically insulating the normal liquid pipes with 6 wood. A steam grate, it's a liquid pipe with an iron bar on top and a few things around it. A turbine, that's a compound turbine with 8 propeller blades around it, and a condenser with 3 cooling fins, a reservoir, 2 liquid pipes, and 2 ingots and 1 base panel. All these machines are crafted from the work table, so it won't work in a normal crafting table. You need the work table to make it work. Then you'll need some empty canister. That's a basic crafting table recipe. It's the bucket of ReactorCraft. It's a glass surrounded by iron ingots. Now, here I have the machines I told you, plus some concrete. Concrete is one of the material you can use to insulate your reactors and avoid radiation from spreading in the world. I can't show you the recipe from an auto workbench because it requires a bucket of water, and you can't use water in the last release of Buildcraft. So I'm gonna show you it from here. It requires a clay block, sand and water bucket, and it makes 2, so it's not an expensive recipe. Now, you'll also need obviously some uranium, a few empty canisters, and some basic RotaryCraft equipment. You also need a way to pump water around. I'm using Buildcraft pumps because in this release 1.6 V8 RotaryCraft liquid pipes are bugged, so don't use them if you use this release because they're risking to corrupt in the world. Now, to start processing uranium, you first need to smelt pitchblende in a furnace. You can also use a RotaryCraft extractor, but it's a more complex setup and I'm not going to show you. If you smelt the pitchblende, you will obtain raw uranium ingot. Now let's wait for it to process. Well, while it's processing, I'll create a pool of water. We'll need water because for the next step we are going to place a uranium processor. Uranium processor uses fluorite and water to process raw uranium ingots into uranium hexafluoride, and we'll see what why we need that. Let's place a pump, a few resting giants around it. And some fluid pipes going from the pump to the refinery, the uranium processor. Yes, the model is the same of the ReactorCraft refinery. Okay, now let's get a few uranium ingots, and we also need some fluoride. Fluoride, uranium ingot, and you'll see it's going to be processed. Yeah, here it is. Now let's wait, and in the meanwhile I'm going to use the isotopic centrifuge. Here bevel gears to connect it, yellow with blue, CVT unit, okay, and the gas turbine. I'm using the gas turbine because it's easier to make the centrifuge work with more radians per second. And I'm using this CVT unit because it needs at least a per 4. Now let's take the angular transducer and wait, I'm going to lower the noise. Okay. And you'll see that the gas turbine is starting up. Meanwhile, you can see we produced a lot of uranium hexafluoride. You should normally take it with the empty canister, but I'm in creative mode and I'm not going to switch out of it because of radiations. Radiations are the damages from processing and handling uranium, and they also cause nausea, so for the sake of a clear streaming I'm not going to get outside of creative mode, and I'll simply get some filled cans from a chest. Now let's put hexafluoride inside the isotopic centrifuge. You see here it's filled and the centrifuge is starting to work. It will need 262,000 radians per second to work, and that's why I'm using the CVT unit. Now let's get to the fun part. Let's make a hole because we'll need a bit of space. Okay, and let's place. The design I'm going to show you is not the most efficient one, but it works basically, and it shows you the main features of. It shows you how a reactor should work. You're obviously going to come up with something more efficient, but this at least works. Now, let's make a deeper hole. Okay, and this was my plan. Why there is water here? Okay. Let's make a water pool. 2 water pools. Bullcraft pumps are not so powerful, so I'm going to need 2. Here. As usual, redstone giants. And levers. And now you have to connect the pumps with the reactor, the boilers specifically. Here. Let's connect this one here and this one here. Okay. Now the centrifuge produces has an 8% chance of producing enriched uranium dust, and in the other case it will produce depleted uranium dust. Depleted uranium dust is needed for breeder reactors and railgun ammunitions, but I'm not going to discuss this. Instead, I'll just show you how to produce uranium, and you basically take the enriched uranium dust and place it in a 4 shapeless pattern, and you get uranium pellets. I prepared some more pellets here. Okay. Now, before inserting the pellets into the reactor, this reactor is not controlled, so the reaction will start immediately. I have to do 2 things. The first one is to insulate the reactor, and I'll do it by placing 2 concrete blocks around it. Okay, and the second thing is to connect the steam grate and turbine. Okay, the steam boilers with a steam line, and take that steam to a steam grate, and then from the steam grate the steam should go into a turbine. 4, 5. 5 is the maximum size of the turbine. And remember, the steam grates need to be exactly below the first turbine block, or it won't work. It will work apparently, but with a very low powering output. Let's place a shaft here and make I'm doing this structure because of steam. Steam will exit the turbine once it's produced, and we want something to collect it. So you should place condenser on top of your turbine. Okay. Condenser are also used to to collect steam and process it back into water, and from there you should pump it back into your boilers, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just quickly show you how steam exits the grate. Now let's start our reactor. Oh, remember, the steam lines are a full block, even if their texture are not. so you won't be able to place something behind them because they occupy the full block. Now let's place uranium inside a reactor. You can already see neutrons going around, and every time a neutron comes in contact with another full reactor, it will emit more neutrons. There will be neutron multiplication, and this neutron multiplication causes heat. Heat is going to transform the water into steam, and steam will flow outside the steam grate and into the turbine. It then makes the turbine spin and get collected by the... Ooh, this should not happen. And it's going to be collected by condensers. You shouldn't let steam escape because it breaks chunks. So that's a bad thing both for your Minecraft saves and for the turbine. The turbine calculates in real time how much steam is flowing into them. So if the chunk saves break, it won't be able to produce any power. Now let's see, with the angular transducer, it's already producing 1 megawatt of power. Okay, so this is the basic reactor setup, and that's all for this tutorial. Thanks for watching the tutorial and have fun with your reactors. See you soon!